All right. We got a full house on this Monday night edition of Paid for Play. Coming at you live at 9 o'clock because we got a great conference preview to get through here today. We brought in one new guest. He's been on the show before, but we'll get to him shortly. We got our man Goose with us back as well, Spin and Steven for tonight's episode. The Big Ten Conference Preview. Predictions, best bets, everything you need to know because this tournament tips off in 2 days, so you got some time to run this back if you aren't catching us live on Monday night. The show is powered by Daily Bread Media. That's where you can be catching us live on YouTube, the best spot to be giving out your predictions. Let Goose or D-Rock know that their squad's going out early. If you're alumni or a fan, let them know that you're rocking with them till the end and you're riding that drunk and blind faith. But we're also live on Twitter at Paid for Play. I got that up, so I'll try to shout out your guys' comments. We can't feature them on the show, but if you want to be able to grab some clout on Twitter, grab a screen grab that you predicted the conference winner rate, YouTube is the spot to be. But D-Rock, second appearance on Daily Bread Media. How's it feel?
Feels pretty good. Glad to be on and hype up my Michigan squad. I think we're going to make a little bit of noise here, at least for one game.
Yes, sir. Goose, another crazy man. How you doing? Rutgers, you got to be feeling great because you had a tweet that I saw you quote retweet. I remember seeing it live back in the day because you and I have been rocking with each other for a few years now. Let them know your great prediction you made with your coach and what the team was going to do this year.
Yeah, so my prediction was actually after the NCAA tournament was canceled due to the pandemic. So I said they would get a double bye. Rutgers was in play for a double bye last season. They didn't get it last season. They came in the 7th seed, but I guess I was a year early because Rutgers got a double bye. I can't believe I just said that. It's been a depressing life for me as a Rutgers basketball fan. I wasn't even a fan, basically. 14 seed after 14 seed, and here we are.
Yes, sir. Steven, how you doing? I think I tweeted out the wrong link.
I'm chilling, man. You know, I'm ready to talk about what I think is the probably third best overall, probably third. It's up there with the Big 12 and the Big East. If anybody wants to fight me on the Big East, just look at what we did in the Big East Big 12 matchup and the Big East Big 10 matchup. It's not like we didn't win or tie both of them, but it's fine. No, the Big 10 should be good. I mean, some of these teams that are ranked high kind of suck low key, but so some of them are good. It's going to be interesting.
All right, now that I got the correct tweet out there, that should probably help us out a little bit. Spin, I know you're on vacation or a mini vacation, but you're recovering slightly. How you doing?
It's okay. They're going to the NIT. Obviously, I'm talking about Towson. They're going to the NIT, so it's okay. We lost straight up, but I have the perfect cure-all right here, right next to me in this glass. But yeah, ready to talk some hoops. The Big Ten is my hometown conference, so obviously a lot of kids from up here go to a lot of the top recruits from up here go to Big Ten schools. So just looking forward to getting at it.
Yes, sir. So now that we've done our introductions, you've probably all known us because you tapped in with the Spaces or you tap in with us on our Saturday morning shows. We've been doing the conference previews last week. Good time to be tapped in because if you watch the A-Sun preview, we have a plus 900 in action in the finals if you tailed one of our plays. So from today's show, we might break down individual matchups, a long shot that we think could win it all, who are semis and who are finals going to be, all that you could possibly need in a conference preview. But let's get into it. It's in Indy. It's 5 straight days? I don't think this is the only tournament where an initial opening round team has never won the tournament because it has the most games possible in it. So the little gauntlet that you have to go to. we can rattle off the odds, but if you go and follow us on Paid for Play at Twitter, you can pull up the bracket, you can pull up the odds. I'll just read off some of the initial few ones for the outright. There's not much we have to say to pump up these teams other than if you're going to bet Nebraska ball, just come talk to me. We can figure out a better way that we can donate that money to a good charity or something like that. But your outright odds are Purdue at plus 200, Illinois at plus 270, Iowa at plus 440, Wisconsin plus 1,000, Ohio State plus 1,600. So we got our guys who joined. Your squad's not in the top 5, but maybe that's good because maybe there's a hungry dog there. But let's get right into it. Nebraska and Minnesota are probably the only 2 teams I could say I could confidently just cross off. Penn State kind of gets to that line, and Northwestern as well. Goose, something good happened for us. I'm happy about that. But
Chattanooga buzzer beater, let's go!
3? Did they win by 3?
For play on Friday.
How much did they win by?
They won by 1. He hit
Not
30-footer double
did not win
team.
by enough.
Don't cover the spread.
Man, I don't.
All right,
I mean,
but back to
congrats
it.
on the win,
I'm
but-
crossing off the
Sorry.
bottom 4 teams
Mhm.
from here, from contention. The rest of the teams, you could convince me into a long shot. What are you guys liking here?
I can start with this one because I have so who am I crossing off, you said?
Yes.
I'm gonna cross off the bottom 5 because of talent. Northwestern, Maryland, Penn State, Nebraska, and Minnesota. I want to cross off Iowa plus 440. The reason I want to cross off Iowa, I'd rather take my chances money line betting them against Illinois and then probably Purdue. I don't like the value in the plus 440. I think they could win the conference, but who would I bet on? I would not bet on Iowa off the initial rip. I would not bet on Michigan State off the initial rip. They have Coach Izzo, the best coach in the conference. They're 3-7 in their last 10. Plus 1,600, even though their path seems pretty dope, I don't want to put money towards them because of their recent form of 3-7. And to be honest, I want to cross off Purdue and Illinois if I had to make an outright bet. I just think this conference is too deep with too many teams to not get at least plus 300 odds. I mean, Purdue is plus 200. I just don't feel like it's worth putting down a bet on them only to double up my money. Or I guess it would be triple up my money, but get double my investment because it's the Big Ten. It's a gauntlet. We see night in and night out these teams, especially like road teams. I mean, everyone's going to be a neutral team. Everyone loses to everyone. Everyone beats everyone up. The first seed of the Big Ten, I'm going to guess off the top of my head, went 13-5. So, there are too many losses in this conference from the top teams. So I only have 4 teams that I would consider putting an outright on: Wisconsin, Ohio State, Rutgers, and Michigan.
All right.
Yeah.
D-Rock, who are you crossing off to start off the show?
So I'm going to cross off the bottom 5 in terms of winning outright. Probably the bottom 6. I don't think Indiana has a real shot. I think they're a little too inconsistent. They really only have 1 star player. But looking at this tournament bracket, I actually really like Nebraska to potentially upset Iowa. The way this team's been playing the past, I think 5 games now, they've looked good. I actually said something to Steven in one of our group chats, and I said Nebraska was going to beat Wisconsin the other day. And then Bryce McGowan's got ruled out after I put money on it. And they still managed to win. This is just a team who is on a roll lately, and they seem like they've kind of figured something out, maybe a little too late in the season. But that combo with Bryce McGowan's and that other guard, I don't remember his name, Alonzo Verge. I mean, that's just one deadly combo. And with the way that they figured things out lately, I expect them to win 2 games. But the bottom 4 teams, it's pretty self-explanatory. Minnesota, they're not playing at the barn. There's no point in even thinking about putting $1 on them. Nebraska, like I said, I would take their money line for the first game and potentially take the spread on the second game to play it safe. Looking at Penn State, I think they could win the first game against Minnesota, I believe they're matched up with. But against Ohio State, I don't think they could get it done. Northwestern automatically out, in my opinion. Minnesota automatically out. It's going to come down to how Nebraska and Penn State play out of those bottom 4.
Spin and Steven, any differences that you have crossing it out, or do we want to start talking about paths and teams that we like to?
Yeah, I mean the only two the 3 teams that I cross off just as not even thinking about it, not even thinking about winning a game or even making any noise. Indiana, Northwestern, Minnesota. This is just not the team for us, and I say us like my home state, Minnesota. So you guys know the factors that I like to use for metrics for considering a team that can win in a conference tournament game. Gophers rank so poorly in almost all of those. Indiana and Northwestern are in very, very terrible form right now. Indiana's lost 8 of the last 10. Northwestern has lost 7 of the last 9. And so, there's a chance that either one of them could just come in and just storm through this tournament or storm through a game or two. I don't think that they're going to. Now, neither one of them shoot the ball well enough to catch fire and maybe catch a team off guard. So as far as to win a game, I would cross off those 3 automatically. I have no interest in any betting action at all on. Everybody else, I'm probably not going to take an outright on very many teams, but to just meaning do anything, it's those 3.
Steven, any difference?
Yeah, the only team I'm completely crossing off that I haven't heard anybody else really cross off yet, I'm crossing off Ohio State. Just an average basketball team, to be nice. Like, they can play a good game, maybe 2 good games, and then they'll come out and throw up some dud against literally anybody. So if anybody who places their money on them, I mean, really, you probably just need counseling. If you're somebody that likes to bet on Ohio State, that's your first problem right there. But I would personally rather risk my
slander for a team that has probably one of the easiest paths.
Nah, completely necessary slander for a bad team. I would rather risk my hard-earned money placing a true outright on Nebraska before I would put one on Ohio State in this tournament.
Do you rank Ohio State or Creighton as a better team?
Oh,
I would have Creighton as a better team. Creighton's a better 3-point shooting team, and they have a big guy in the middle who could play with whoever Ohio State's throwing at them in the middle.
Well,
and
that's
as
probably
we all know,
much
I
a shame
hate Creighton.
because Ohio State's a lock to get into the tourney, and Creighton's on the complete wrong side of it. But not to compare conferences or anything like that. I was just trying to say the Ohio State, maybe they haven't done it I mean, they made it to the title games a few times. It's just their bad losses came Maryland and Nebraska. They really don't have that bad of a loss other than that on the schedule.
Hey, they fold when it counts. It happens every year.
So it was a great loss for them on Sunday.
No, that's not a bad loss, though. That's what I'm saying. If you go through their schedule and what their losses, when you're looking at most other teams, they only have 1 quad 3 loss. They don't have any quad 4 losses. They're 5-4 in the quad 2, and against the quad 1, they're 5-5. So they basically, for Ohio State, they've held their means for mostly everyone that they played. And when you're just talking about the paths, and that's one of our segments we can talk about, and so we can go to for long shots or easiest paths, whatever way you want to talk about it. I had Ohio State as one of my easiest paths because if you pull Penn State, because I think there's not a chance that Minnesota gets it, and then you pull Purdue. Purdue has Jaden Ivey this year. That's the one differentiating factor where I don't want to say they're the easiest path. But if they can neutralize Ivy to some extent, and they did win their matchup against them this year. I think that's where they get it, because then they get the winner of Michigan State, Wisconsin. It's that Purdue game and Purdue's defense that has been completely non-existent. And with the size of Edey and Travion Williams, which is their differentiating factor, and one-game scenarios when you've played them before, you can scheme those two out of it, and we've seen it done before. It's just Ivy is the completely part where I'm not confidently, and I wanted to put a future on Ohio State. So that's why when Steven said you should rethink it, just from their path, because if they pull Michigan State or Wisconsin, Wisconsin's the team that's allowed the most kill opportunities, whereas the most 10-0 runs you've given up, they're the most other than Nebraska in the Big Ten. So that's just kind of where their path to get to the finals at that price. Sure, it's not the best, so maybe money lining it for Purdue is your better option. But I think Holtman can potentially get it here if Kyle Young gets back from that concussion, and if Zed Key's not as swollen and as bad as some people say. Holtman said it's completely fine. So it seems like the pieces are there. And then they could bring Joey Brunk off the bench, who dropped 18 against Michigan, who's a fifth-year transfer from Indiana. So he's been in the conference before as well. So it's just they might have a little too much for me to say it's completely it's irresponsible to bet the future on them.
Yeah, and with Ohio State, because I would completely agree with Steven, is that they are absolutely maddening to bet on because of how inconsistent they are and how on any given night they can just drop an absolute dud. When you look at them metrically, they match up pretty well compared to the rest of the conference. 20th overall in EFG, effective field goal percentage, and 61st in turnovers per possession, which are the two historically are the two strongest indicators for a team that can make a run in a conference tournament, if you can make shots and take care of the basketball. So, if you just looked at their just straight numbers, took Ohio and took all the team names off of it, you would probably say, wow, like that's a team that I might look at putting some money on. Then you slap Ohio State on there and you think of how many times you've just been absolutely rat fucked by them at the betting window. And then you're like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see, maybe.
Who else? Or is there anyone else that thinks a team has an extremely easy path to get through, or an easier path than someone else?
I guess I'm like with you in the sense that bottom part of the bracket, I was going to more so target Purdue because of Ohio State, how we say plays so inconsistent, because Michigan State is 3-7 in their last 10, and because Wisconsin. What is Johnny Davies' injury status? I know he hurt his ankle. Is he going to play this tournament?
I thought he was expected to play.
Oh, okay.
Now, as far as like how effective he'll be and like how much he'll be able to tolerate, that one I don't know.
Gotcha. Because I mean, if he's out, then like I guess Purdue to me has an easier path, I guess.
No, but we're right in the same area where that bottom part of the bracket to make your way up. That's where it's kind of like I didn't want to write Penn State off completely just because of that, but I really don't think they have a shot in hell, not in Shrewsbury's first year.
They're 8-3 against the spread in their last 11, and I'm not saying they're going to beat Ohio State, but if they play Ohio State, I'm taking Penn State plus the points. Yeah, they're covering a lot of spreads lately. They're playing strong. They're playing better basketball these last three weeks or so.
Yeah, I like Penn State to potentially upset Ohio State. They've looked good at the end of the season this year. They slipped up on senior night against Nebraska, and that was right in the middle of when Nebraska started playing hot. This Penn State team, John Hara, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, Harar. That dude is just a difference maker. Not in terms of just like what he's putting on the stat sheet. He's the hardest worker out of anybody that you put on the floor. And that really makes a difference in these games for Penn State. He's out there getting offensive rebounds when he shouldn't be. He's a little undersized compared to most centers in the Big Ten. But looking at this Penn State potential matchup with Ohio State and the way Ohio State plays down to their competition, that would be the one spot I'm looking at, because it's going to come down to Ohio State, how they're going to be able to match up, or how they're going to be able to get consistent play out of EJ Liddell. And then their freshman as well. He's in the running for freshman of the year, Malachi Branham. He's a good ball player, but you see those growing pains with him, kind of a lot like Michigan with Caleb Houston. A little bit inconsistent. They're not necessarily a top 10 freshman coming into this draft. That's the two things I think it comes down to. And then what Rex brought up is Kyle Young going to be healthy defensively and from the 3-point line. He's a huge, huge piece in this Ohio State offense. And then Joey Brunk, I mean, where did he come from?
Indiana. He played so many minutes there, and it's just because my one of my buddy's friends from the prior place, last name is Joey Brunk. So that's where you're just like, bro, you didn't give us the inside source that you're transferring. Like, but if you watch him at Indiana last year, he wasn't great, but he was pulling like 25 minutes. So I was just where like he just never fit in their scheme and rotation, and it seemed like a wasted transfer. But
yeah, and as a Michigan fan, I hated watching the Michigan-Ohio State matchups like 7-8 years ago when Aaron Kraft played there, because all it ever was like, man, just look at this guy. He's so great. He's got a 4.0, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't care. I don't care that he's got a 4.0 right now. I just want to watch Michigan win. And then the matchup on Sunday, that's all they were talking about from Joey Brunk. Oh, he's a 5th-year senior. He's got a 4.0, hell of a player. And then he drops like 18 on us. I was like, wherever this milkman came from, it's like he needs to chill out a little bit.
So to finish that up, the only thing with Penn State, like I tried to make a case for them to get it. It's just Ohio State got them both times they played. Yeah. Sure, they both came much earlier in conference play, so it wasn't even in February, both matchups came. So a lot has changed at the time for the teams. But with that 70% win percentage, if the team gets you twice. So let's talk about the top part of the bracket, since we kind of got through there before we talk about the long shots we're going to target. And then we'll be revealing each of our semis and our finals. But Goose, I don't think your team got the hardest path, because you drew Iowa, and Iowa never has a defense. And the game, your only time you played, it was 48-46, which almost made my eyes bleed out of my brain. But I know you're loving every single minute of that rough and tough basketball there. You think you guys are going to swip up against Northwestern, or do you think how's the repeat with Iowa Rutgers going to go?
So I think Iowa. I don't know exactly when they played Rutgers, because this whole season's been just one mashup. But since then, I feel like Iowa's been the best team in the Big Ten. They were the hottest team in the closing stretch. I think they get by their second round match, or their first matchup. But I think it should be a good battle against Rutgers. What I love about Rutgers is their athleticism on defense, their size on defense. They make Iowa work. They have Cliff Amorie, who's a 6'11" pogo stick, who Iowa, it'll be hard for them to guard him. Caleb McConnell's the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. So if Rutgers could hit some shots, because Iowa can't play defense really. If Rutgers could hit some shots, they could get by Iowa.
You don't even have to hit some shots.
But that was at
48 points.
That was some rack magic.
Yeah.
And what do you think about this Iowa Rutgers matchup?
Yeah, and to your point, Goose, 8-4. The Iowa's 8-4 since the matchup, and they've averaged close to 83 points per game. Now they've given up about as many, but their scoring has been significantly up. Yeah, I think on a neutral floor, with apologies to Goose, I do got to give. And when I like to put these previews together, I take the key metrics that I look for, and I try to take just team names off of it. So I'll put all the metrics down, and then I'll delete team names and jumble them up, and then try to attach them again. And the team that actually comes out the best metrically for this entire tournament, there's two of them. One is Purdue and the other is Iowa. From a shooting perspective, they're number one in the nation in least turnovers per game. To Rex's point, the only problem is they don't play any defense. And so the other part that I think that might hurt Iowa, which is where I think that Rutgers might have a shot, is that of their top six, that only two of them are upperclassmen. And come tournament time, you typically see teams that have more upperclassmen. Of your top six, you typically need four. Four is the magic number that you need in your top six rotation to make a deep run into the NCAAs, and usually a run in the conference tournament. Rutgers has four, Iowa only has two. And so then the question becomes, will Iowa's young guys step up in a matchup like they would see in this conference tournament? We've seen it already in the small conference tournaments that things tighten up, the rim gets smaller, guys have abnormal behaviors because you know that your season's on the line. You know there's no tomorrow. And that can – so if I had to pick right now, I would pick Iowa, but there is in no world am I saying that Rutgers doesn't have a shot here.
Steven, you've been quiet for a little bit. Do you want to talk Iowa Rutgers? Or because I kind of want to make you talk Indiana, Michigan instead, and make us all give our previews for that and make D-Rock sit here and listen to it.
I got a couple things on the Rutgers Iowa game. I think on a neutral floor, Iowa's offense won't be as efficient. Same thing they said like the conference tournament stuff, just players not playing as free as they usually do. I could definitely see Rutgers pulling it out. Also, just because I feel like Iowa feels pretty safe in the tournament. I'm sure they're either a lock or essentially a lock already. Rutgers doesn't feel like they're on that same level yet. Like, I think Rutgers is still going to come into this game desperate, feeling like they need a win to feel comfortable in the tournament. Iowa doesn't have that as much. So I could see Rutgers winning one, but I mean, the team I really want to talk about, I'll save for later.
Do you guys really think, like, I'm just asking, if Iowa beats Rutgers, they got the double bye, they got the 4 seed. Do you see a way that they're the number 1 seed in the NIT? Like,
No.
how nervous should a Rutgers fan be?
Goose is asking for a friend. How nervous should a friend be?
How nervous should I be?
So right now I personally have Rutgers at the very top of my last 4 in list, but when you get down there, it's a pretty jumbled list. So metrically, I think that they rank better than teams like Creighton, than teams like Wyoming. And so because they play in a power conference, I can actually see them getting in over a Wyoming. I don't know if I'd be too concerned. I think if they go out in their first game and they just get like hammered, like they just get their ass kicked, then and you also have, for some of the power conferences, like a bubble team, like let's say a bubble team wins the Big 12 or a bubble team wins the Pac-12 or something like that, then there might be time to sweat. But if everything works out and you have an automatic team, a team that was getting in anyway, winning one of these most of these power conferences, as long as Rutgers doesn't just get the shit kicked out of them in their first game, I think they're fine.
Yeah, so a lot of things that I keep seeing about Rutgers is that the quad 1 wins help them a lot, but it's the bottom side that hurts them because you got losses in Northwestern, Maryland, Minnesota. So that's what I'm looking at.
Those aren't the losses that kill them, D-Rock.
Those aren't the losses that kill me.
Yeah, you want to go back to the beginning of the season?
No, that's what I'm saying.
No.
You were going to the point exactly, D-Rock, and that's the fact that I think Rutgers needs to win against Iowa, and they're 100% in. If they lose it, I don't even think it needs to be a bubble team being in there. The losses to DePaul isn't that bad, but the Lafayette and UMass loss and not having 20 wins and trying to ask to get in at 18-13, even though your Big Ten conference is awesome, I can see it happening, but that is your nightmare scenario. That's it, Goose. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's wild because I'm looking at like a lot of the bracket predictions and people have Michigan in like no question because of the quad one wins, and Rutgers is still on the bubble. And if you look at the bracket, the Big Ten bracket, and just a casual basketball fan, and you see Rutgers as a 4 seed, and then Michigan as an 8 seed, and Michigan's in the tourney and Rutgers doesn't make it, like that's what blows my mind. But when you dive deeper into it and you see those bottom quad whatever, probably quad 100s, those losses, that's what hurts a lot. And if Nebraska plays as hot as they do, and they end up beating, they beat Northwestern, they end up beating Iowa somehow, and they face Rutgers, I don't think Rutgers wins because Rutgers plays down to their competition, which is just so insane when I watch this team. Because when Rutgers plays one of those top 5 teams in the Big Ten, they look like one of the better, like top 3 team in the conference. I mean, Geo Baker, Ron Harper, Big Cliff. I mean, those guys, they go off in these bigger games. And if it just so happens that you get a 13 seed in Nebraska that makes it all the way to the Rutgers game, I'd be a little bit more worried than playing against Iowa, because even though Iowa's on a tear offensively, Rutgers plays up to competition. It's as simple as that, and they play down to the teams who aren't that good.
Yes, Goose. And that is a fraud. It could be a fraud, and it could be the thing that potentially keeps you out. And it's to the fact where when you look at the rest of Rutgers non-con, and I try to respect and keep conference, like that should be your barometer test. What's their best non-con win? Seton Hall was the other game that you had a shot against, and was an L. So that's where I'm just saying it's real tough to sell. They have great Big Ten wins. No questions about that. And I honestly, if Northwestern loses to Nebraska, I'll be the most shocked. Steven, you good to come back in, or are you just chilling off screen?
You're muted.
No, I think that's a perfect way to bring them back.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I wanted to leave it in that nice little four-person lineup where you guys are having that conversation. I didn't really have anything to say. I had to go do something real quick, but I'm back.
All right, let's talk Indiana, Michigan for me, because that'll be the way that we'll wrap it up, and then we'll give out our long shots, our semis, and anything else we want to talk about.
All right, let me help everybody out in here, because me and Indiana have terrible history. I think Indiana is going to fucking roll. 20-point win. They're just going to come in and smoke them. Trace Jackson Davis, elite. Those shooters, good enough, I guess. Michigan, young. I just give me Indiana. Give me Indiana easy.
So Indiana on an alt line minus 25.5. Is that what I'm understanding from Steven? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm more curious of the way that Vegas is going to open this line, personally. I think it's going to be at a pick 'em. As crazy as that sounds, I don't think any team will be favored by more than 3 in this one.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And if there is a team favorite, I think it will have to go to Michigan because of their name. I mean, they've been a bit of a basketball school the past few years. But I'll save my analysis and I'll let you guys go first.
Ben, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, this Indiana is just playing way too inconsistent right now for me to want to back them in any way, shape, or form. Like I mentioned earlier, 2-8 on their last 10, and they're just their shooting form is bad. Their turnovers are up. Their offensive efficiency is just watching them, they just look out of sync. And they look like, to me, they look like a team that has really lost their identity offensively. And then it's just give it to Trace and just let him go iso ball. And in a tournament that has this many good teams, and even if they happen to make it on the NCAAs, that's just not going to work. So I just can't in good conscience back them right now.
The one thing I look at and capping motivation, I feel like is not what you're supposed to do. But
It's impossible.
But if Michigan loses this game, I feel like they're at least in Dayton. They should be in. But if Indiana loses this game, they're NIT. That's a big thing for me. Indiana is fully fighting for their lives. Michigan is like half, I guess, fighting for their life. And both teams obviously want to win. It's a Big Ten tournament. But I just, Coach Mike Woodson, he's solid. He has some things to learn in the college game. I can see Indiana putting it all on the line for this one game. I do like Michigan to advance, though.
I mean, if you guys just been watching Indiana, it's as simple as their threes are never going to be consistent this season.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Their 2 wins in this recent skid where Maryland, Minnesota, they're able to, I want to say own the inside, but you're a little bit more consistent from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how Spin nailed it. If you go back and look at their 2-point and 3-point percentages over this skid, it's when they're facing legit defenses. That's when they start to scale off. But can we say at least you were saying Indiana's are more inconsistent. At least they lost a lot in a row, won a lot in a row, then lost. It was Michigan's been seesawing. And they're on the wrong side of the seesaw right now because they've alternated wins and losses for the past like 7 or 8 games. Yeah, you got the new coach coming in and all that type of stuff. Or with Phil stepping in, not the new coach, but with Juwan Howard being back, this is a put up or shut up game for Michigan because you got your guy coming back who literally fought for you, put the shit on the line. And if they don't come out firing off the gate and they let Woodson, Juwan, it's only his 2nd season here. If they let Woodson come in and get him in the first round of the Big Ten, I think that puts a lot too much in like the rumor mill and like the radio airwaves that doesn't need to be there for Howard.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this whole Juwan Howard mess, I think it's going to be a big game for him coming back, and I kind of like it. I like the motivation that the team's probably going to have with it being his first game back. If he loses, I don't think there should be any reason that people start talking about, okay, is he a hothead? Is he the wrong guy in charge? Should he be fired? I think that's not fair after his 2nd year. But he's got a couple asterisks on a couple games in his record just because of the way he's behaved. Now, Rex and I talked about this. Phil Martelli, I think he had a lot to do with that seesaw. His in-game adjustments, like you said, I paid attention to it ever since you said to specifically look out for it. And his adjustments are so inconsistent. Now, this last game that we just had against Ohio State, the second half, whatever he did to adjust was beautiful. I mean, I think we went 29-6 run. I mean, that's not heard of as a Michigan fan because we started off the second half how we always do. 2-3 straight turnovers, and then you're expecting a big run by the other team. But Ohio State just turned over the ball too. And this is probably the best game I've seen Michigan play defensively all year long. So that's one thing I want to pay attention to going into the tournament is how are they going to play defensively? Because in every single game, really, other than the last one, they've let each team's star player get whatever he wants, whether that's Keegan Murray, Ron Harper Jr., Kofi Coburn, and any one of Illinois' guards. Against Michigan State, they shut down Gabe Brown, but I don't know that you could really say you got a star at Michigan State because they're pretty inconsistent. But you go down the list, Johnny Davis, Zach Evey, and Ivey. I mean, Jaden Ivey. It's a given. So I think Trace Jackson Davis is going to have a good game regardless. It's going to come down to their guard. What is his name? Xavier Johnson. How's he going to perform against Michigan? And if you guys watch that last game against Purdue, Trace Jackson Davis and Xavier Johnson, I don't think they like each other. They look frustrated with each other's play all the time. If Trace Jackson Davis is open and he's not getting the ball, it's usually because Xavier Johnson is throwing up a stupid shot. And both these players are good in their own way, but they don't know how to play as a team. And I think that's the biggest issue with why Indiana has been losing these games is because of your two-star players not knowing how to play for each other or play with each other. At the end of the game against Purdue, Indiana had a shot to tie it up. But instead, with 7 seconds left on the clock, he tries drawing a foul at a half-court heave three that no official, other than maybe Bo Borowski, will call in a game. Trace Jackson Davis was wide open at the top of the key, and instead he did something like that. And you looked at his reaction afterwards, and he was just pissed. He was shaking his head at him. They kept putting the camera on him at the end of the game, and he's just, you could tell that he's frustrated with the way he plays. Typically, when you see something like that in any college basketball game, the player goes up to him, gives him a hug, arm around the shoulder, like, hey, it's okay. Like, we played good try. Should have been a call. No, not these guys. These guys were pissed. Now, to flip over to Michigan, the key things in this game is going to be your guard play. Is Eli Brooks going to score? He's been a little bit inconsistent. And then your next guy, who we really rely on for threes, is Caleb Hewson. At the end of the season, the past 5 games, his splits were 21 points, 16, 11. Then he had 0 against Ohio State. That 4-game stretch where he was playing pretty good is something I've been waiting to see all season. But the last game against OSU is exactly what we've seen, is how inconsistent that he is. So it's going to come down to Devontae Jones needs to score 15-plus points. Eli Brooks has to at least scores 10, shoot a couple threes, learn how to dribble and drive the ball. Musa Diabate, he's got to get 8 to 10 points, and hopefully he doesn't get fouled. The dude's free throw shot is absolutely terrible. And then, it's bad. Hunter Dickinson, he's got to get his 20-point, 10-rebound game, and he had quite a few of them at the end of the season. And then one guy who's come on as of late the past 3 games that Phil Martelli's been the head coach, who kind of was faded out of the system when Juwan Howard was coaching, is Terence Williams. This dude's come off the bench. He's got new energy underneath him. He's driving the ball. He's getting to the basket. He's shooting threes, which is something we barely see from this Michigan team all year long. And we finally have something off the bench. Kobe Buffkin's been playing good. Frankie Collins is probably the best ball handler in the Big Ten. But if you see that dude ever shoot a 3, just look away. There was 1 3 that he attempted this year that hit the shot clock. Like, that's how far it was off. So that's what I'm looking for in this game. I do have Michigan winning. I do see them moving on. It helps that Indiana's playing consistent, but I am scared of that seesaw that you mentioned of Michigan wins, then they lose. They win, then they lose. So if we come out and we start 1 of 10 from the 3-point line, Michigan's probably going to lose this game, because there's games this year where they've shot like 2 for 26, and you live and die by the 3, and this team sure knows how to die by it.
All right, so let's get into any long shots that we have. Is anyone taking? We'll bring Steven back in. Does anyone have a longer shot odds that they're taking outright, or should we just get into the shorter odds and our semis?
Should I just give my quick case to Rutgers real quick? Because I don't want to be
give
too
your
biased. The reason why Rutgers can win this Big Ten tournament: 5th-year starter and 3-time captain Geo Baker. He's called Geo Baker Big Shot Maker for a reason. Ron Harper Jr., senior small forward. We saw his buzzer beater against Purdue. We saw his huge shot against Indiana. Dude has stones. Caleb McConnell, Defensive Player of the Year. Cliff Amorie, he played really good defense against the likes of Kofi Coburn and Zach Edey. Like, he's a really good big in the Big Ten. And Paul Mulcahy, who The Athletic labeled as one of the top 5 glue guys in America. He's a 6'6" point guard. He backs you down. He plays old man game. And that's their starting lineup right there. That's a solid starting lineup. And I'll quickly go back to last year. They were up by 10 against Hewson. They lost the game in the NCAA tournament. Rutgers could have made a Final Four run, and they had the biggest meltdown of the NCAA tournament last year. That's why Geo Baker came back, because the job's not finished. The job gets finished Sunday when they win the Big Ten.
Ooh, I like it.
But that won't actually be in my bracket.
All right.
I just had to get that out of my system.
So, all right. I'll make a case. I'll make a case for Tom Izzo here. And I will make a case for him primarily because it is Tom Izzo. And because the man is 32-17 in Big Ten tournament games. He's won 6 championships. Actually won Big Ten tournament championships before with at least one, maybe not more than one, but at least one team that I think has less talent than this. When you look at metrically, the only place where Michigan State doesn't really match up is they turn the ball over too much. They're 263rd in turnovers per possession. Shooting their top 100, offensive rebounding their top 100. And this is, this is Tom Izzo's month to shine. So if you're going to give me that, if you're going to give me Tom Izzo at 16-1 to win the Big Ten tournament, when they don't have a double bye, but they do have a first round bye, I would not be opposed to throwing a little bit on that, especially when they play in that bottom half of the bracket, because I think they'll beat Maryland anyway, but I do think they can get by Wisconsin, and maybe it's Purdue, maybe not, but I think for my long shot, I am going to go with just a man who's coaching I just respect the living hell out of. And like I said, a guy who has just dominated this tournament throughout the course of his career. It is very, very hard for me to not take at least a flyer on Tom Izzo at 16-1.
Anyone else got a long shot?
I'd put it on I'd put a little bit on each of the bubble teams to make a run. And so I just go with Rutgers and Michigan. So the 2 teams here. I think Indiana is the farthest out and they have the toughest path. So I don't really see it for them. Mm-hmm. But those like all the teams that are clearly in, obviously they want to win. I don't think they're going to be as incentivized to win as these teams who are firmly right on the middle of the bubble. So just with the odds you can get for Rutgers and the odds you can get for Michigan, plus their motivation, plus it's not like they're that much less talented than the teams at the top of the conference. I definitely think there's value in those 2 teams to go on a run.
I agree.
So to Steven's point, and I'll reveal, D-Rock, did you have a long shot or no?
I was just going to follow up what he said. My 2 long shots is Michigan and Rutgers too. I just look at the schedule, and I got Michigan beating Indiana. Now, Michigan versus Illinois, they're 0-5 in their last 5 matchups. And I think the saying is 6 times the charm, right? So we'll see if that works. But if they beat Illinois, Goose and I might have to hop on here and have a little bit of a head-to-head again with a potential Rutgers-Michigan matchup. I could see it shaking out. Like I said, Rutgers plays up to their potential. So if they have a potential Iowa matchup, it's a good spot for them to move on. And if Michigan ends up 6 times the charm and beats Illinois, that's a potential conference semifinals matchup. And I could see either of those teams winning if they make it into the championship.
All right. So let's get into – should we just get into the semis and wrap it up since we got about 10 minutes left in this stream? Who wants to reveal it first, or should I do it? Because I'll do it first because Finn, I like the way that you went for Michigan State. I was thinking about going with them. I just can't trust Izzo without a point guard to run his offense. That's essentially all I can see. When that happens and I can get Wisconsin at plus 1,000, even though how much I hate their three-point offense, how cold it can go, how susceptible they are to give up a 10-0 run in a heartbeat, I think they're kind of getting slept on, especially they're coming off the lowest of the lows too, especially with the senior day loss against Nebraska on top of it. I think they're the team that'll probably come out motivated more than anything. And with how I don't have Purdue getting upset by Ohio State. I really wanted to talk myself into it and do it, but how likely I think that could be there, I have to take a future in Wisconsin at plus 1,000 because my finals is Wisconsin, Purdue. I have Rutgers, and I have Illinois. I do have Indiana beating Michigan, by the way. And then I have Illinois, Wisconsin. I'm just team chaos because then I want all the rumblings to be there. Should we hire Phil Martellian for the fun? Not for the analytics perspective, but I'm going team chaos with that one and making D-Rock sweat a little bit. So I got Illinois versus Wisconsin. Illinois should win. I mean, that price off for them is hard to talk off me at plus 270. I just don't want anything to do with Purdue. I think they're going to show that they're a paper tiger. They might win the Big Ten, and it comes in their first and second game in March. It could be that way, but I'm not going to buy into that defense. I'm not buying into Iowa's defense. That's why I have Rutgers coming through once again. And I think Illinois versus Wisconsin is the way it's going to shape out. 1 versus 2 type kind of chalk, but when Wisconsin has the 5th or 4th best odds at plus 1,000, I'll take it on FanDuel.
Awesome.
Who wants to do their second?
Wisconsin.
I'll go next. I got something pretty similar, but I have Rutgers beating Nebraska in the quarterfinals. I really do think Nebraska's hot. One of those double-digit seeds always seems to get at least 2 wins. There's always one of those teams that's just bad all year that rattles off multiple wins in the conference tournament, and I think Nebraska is getting hot at the perfect time to pull a couple upsets. But I also like Illinois, so I got Illinois, Rutgers. I will take Michigan State because I do think Wisconsin, even with Johnny Davis and everything people like to talk about, I still think they're fraudulent enough that they don't make it to the semifinals. Then I got Purdue. In the final, I got Illinois and Purdue. And I got Illinois winning the whole thing. I think their 3-point shooters to go around Kofi are just getting too hot with Grandison and Plummer, and then you still got Trent Frazier out there. So if they can legitimately space the floor with 4 guys that can shoot and leave Kofi in the middle, there's too many matchup problems for any of the teams that I can see them getting matched up against to potentially beat them.
And one guy you can't forget about is Curbelo.
Facts. Spin. Give me yours.
Yeah, just because it's somewhat similar to Stevens. So I have Michigan beating Indiana. I do have Rutgers beating Iowa. I have Michigan State. I'll get back to them. Actually, I have I have Purdue in the semis, but I have Michigan State beating Maryland and Wisconsin. And I had to check myself on this one because I had to not just think about how punchable some team are, one in particular that I won't name. It's okay. We all know who it is. So anyways, but for me, to your point, Rex, Wisconsin just does not shoot the ball well enough. And in a tournament where you have to win this many games in this many days, since their shooting fails them as it is, if you're playing on, even after a day or two worth of games, if you're playing on tired legs, I can see that failing them pretty easily here. I can also see Michigan State dominating the offensive glass in what would amount to a rubber match against Wisconsin. So my final 4 here would be Rutgers, Illinois, Michigan State, and Purdue. And I do have Illinois, Purdue like Steven does, and I also have Illinois winning the championship for a lot of the same reasons. And then the other thing I'll just say with that is number 1 seeds all time in this tournament are 38-14, and they also have 9 championships. So it's chalky, yes. But when you're in a power conference like this and you're the number 1 seed, you're the number 1 seed for a reason. And this is where the championship most often comes out of. In fact, aside from the number 1 and 2 seeds since the tournament started, there have 1 and 2 seeds have won 16 Big Ten championships in the tournament, and every other seed combined has won 5. So
that's why I figured him give me the plus 1,000 on Wisconsin. It's too tough to turn it down.
Their faces are too punchable for me. I'm sorry.
Oh, They're extremely. And how much like the narrative was their 3-point offense isn't there. They give up the kill shots, which is a new metric that's being tracked this season, which I love because it's how susceptible you are to go on a run and to go against a run, which is especially 10-0. They still ended 24-6 and only had 5 conference losses. As many flaws as they had, they found ways to grind out games. Nebraska was their worst loss, but if you guys are anointing them the hottest team in the nation right now, I might feel a little bit better about my Wisconsin plus 1,000 now. D-Rock, give me yours. We'll let Goose go last.
So I got Michigan winning against Indiana. Just wanted to say I do think Wisconsin intentionally lost against Nebraska because that was going to be the rematch of the big. They called it the Mall in Madison or something stupid like that is what sports announcers started calling it. But I do see it kind of because if Michigan beat Indiana, we were facing Wisconsin the next game. But now they're on the other side of the bracket. So if Wisconsin was still up at the top, I would have picked Michigan to beat those guys too and make it into the conference finals for sure. But got Michigan versus Illinois. Unfortunately, I got to go with Illinois beating Michigan. Hunter Dickinson just seems like he's defeated because Kofi is the only big guy in the Big Ten who is actually someone who manhandles him. And then Rutgers versus I want to ride with Nebraska. They've been playing hot lately. They're figuring out ways to win. Iowa lets anybody score. They don't know how to play defense. And if Bryce McGowan's is the guy that I'm trusting to play a little bit better than Keegan Murray, I think it could happen. He's talked about as being Big Ten Freshman of the Year. They talked about him being Freshman of the Year nationally for a little while, but that won't happen because they're too small of a school and their record's too bad. So I got Rutgers winning that matchup I'll go with Nebraska. Michigan State, Wisconsin are the next 2 teams that I have in my matchup. I do have to go with Michigan State. It's like Spence said, Tom Izzo finds a way to win. He's going to be a Hall of Fame college basketball coach for a reason. He's a hell of a coach. But I'm not going to say I can root for Michigan State. I'm going to root for Maryland to lose. And then I'll root for Wisconsin to lose. And then same thing for the next matchup. Penn State and Minnesota. Neither of those teams are good enough to beat Ohio State. So I do have Ohio State moving on to Purdue. And Purdue's the same way that Minnesota is. They don't play good on the road. So with this being a neutral site game, it is an Indy, so their home crowd is going to travel really well. But with it not being their home floor, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ohio State beat Purdue. And then that would give you a Ohio State, Michigan State matchup, and then you would have Illinois and Rutgers.
You're not going to give us your winner?
Winner of it all? I'm going to go with Rutgers to win it all. I mean, that's my long shot of the tournament. With the way this team plays up to competition, I know I keep saying it. I could see them if they make it to that conference finals. This team really reminds me a lot of the Michigan team last year. Michigan had 5 seniors on their roster, and Rutgers is loaded with upperclassmen. I really could see it happening. If they could play, they match their guard play, and Big Cliff could slow down Kofi. I think Rutgers will win any matchup that they have in the championship.
All right, Goose, before you give yours and go nuts, Maryland is the team to target because we haven't talked about them once. They're the double-digit seed. We haven't given them any props. We haven't really dug on them at all. We just all chalked in Michigan State to get past them. I mean, interim coach and everything. But, Goose, give me yours, and I was just pointing that out to the viewers.
So it's weird because I guess I'll get a little ahead of myself. I see Michigan State beating Maryland and Wisconsin, but I wouldn't be shocked if Maryland makes the run because, in my opinion, guard play dominates March, and their 2 leading scorers are 2 guards, Fats Russell, and I forgot the other dude's name, but they average And they averaged 29 points. Like, they could go off for like 45 points, just them two.
On terrible shot selections. We witnessed it, Goose in the rack. We sat next to each other
Yeah.
and watched them shoot 10 terrible threes and go 7 for 10.
But like J.R. Smith, like, he never saw a shot he didn't like. Like, they could just magically hit shots. So you were right about that. Like, we all are liking Michigan State. Wouldn't surprise me though if Maryland gets that dub right there. But yeah, I'm going Michigan State to get by even Wisconsin, because I just think the way they lost the last game, and with Davis out, like, or possibly out, limited out, I don't know his status. But since I don't know his status, I'll go Michigan State. And I think they'll play Purdue. I don't think Purdue's that good, to be honest. Like, I don't see them as like a Final Four team in the whole grand scheme, but I just like their path. I talked about their path earlier. So Purdue's going to face Michigan State, in my opinion, and Purdue's going to go to the finals. On the other side, Illinois, I think, gets by Michigan, but I'm also a little nervous on my Rutgers. Everyone's picking Rutgers to beat Iowa, and that always means that Rutgers is going to lose. So I can't take one for the team, though. I still think Rutgers is going to beat Iowa. And look, obviously, if Rutgers plays like Illinois in the quarters, I think that would be – or no, that would be the semis. If Rutgers plays Illinois in the semis, obviously I'm going to think Rutgers is going to win. And I'm going to be so excited for that game, and it's going to be like one of the most anticipated games of my basketball life. But since I'm on the stream, Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten. I mean, that's why they're the 1 seed. And I think they get by Rutgers, even though I like how Rutgers matches up because they have Cliff, who's a good big, and you need a good big against Kofi. But I think Illinois gets by, and I think Illinois beats Purdue because, as I said, I feel like Purdue's slight frauds. They're so talented. They should have had like 3 losses with all this talent, or 2 losses in the Big Ten with all this talent, in my opinion. But they keep losing games. So Illinois gets by in the finals. Illinois wins the Big Ten, and that's why they're the 1 seed, in my opinion.
So we had 3 Illinois, 1 Rutgers, 1 Wisconsin.
I just had one more comment to Goose. You're talking about Purdue, how they always seem to kind of stumble. And really, they seem to stumble under Matt Painter. So he has the 1 tournament championship, but 11-14 lifetime in the tournament with some really damn good teams. So he's just not a coach that I'm actively looking to trust in March.
Goose, I wanted to follow up something too. Since you're the only one who talked about Maryland, and all of us are just kind of writing them off, with Michigan State just going in and beating them because Tom Izzo in the tourney, great coach.
I just have Wisconsin beating either of those teams without an issue. That's kind of more what I have from that perspective.
Maryland just played these guys yesterday.
And they lost twice in the season against them, which doesn't bode well.
Guards carry teams in March, in my opinion. That's probably not true. But
I know it's 6 times the charm is a saying, but I think 3rd time's the charm might work too. But they were losing by 20 in the first half, and they only lost by 10. They fought back in the second. This team's going to be fresh. They just played them yesterday. So when's that game? Thursday. So there'd be a 4-day break to figure out Tom Izzo and this Michigan State team. This game might be closer than people think.
That's what I'm saying. Don't write off Danny Manning in Maryland. It's not like Danny Manning doesn't have conference tournament or any of that type of experience either. So when he did get kicked out, it was the ACC, or when the original coach left. Goose, you're rocking your Rutgers. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe if you watch this episode with us. We're literally about to go live in 2 minutes. We just have to start up a new stream so we can so we can talk about the ACC. We'll be bringing in Sosa for that one with Steven and Spin. But Goose and D-Rock, we appreciate both of you tapping in with us, joining us for the Big Ten stream. Let's hope we got some good call-outs here. Hopefully Maryland doesn't make us ruin all of our predictions. But for Michigan and Rutgers' sake, let's all have a good time in that Big Ten tournament. Thank God it's not in Madison Square Garden anymore, because that was the worst decision they've ever made.
I know, but it was so close to me.
Yeah, for all those Rutgers fans, man, they really put it there. So, D-Rock, any last words before we wrap up?
Michigan's going to be my underdog. They're a long shot, but you giving me that much odds for this team with a lot of heart. They're looking like they're figuring things out. Like I said, 6 times the charm, they're going to beat Illinois.
All right. Love it. You can follow D-Rock on his handle right under his head for all Twitter. Great Twitter follow. We appreciate him joining us. Until 2 minutes. We'll catch you all later.